transforming lives.
Very good morning, and we are glad that you are finding time to be with us on this 27th of September 2023. You're right on time, and this is your favorite program, the Mid-Morning Pack. We want to unpack quite a number of issues that have been taking the center stage along or across this particular 1 week in our country, and of course across our 47 counties and even in the society. And of course, to also try to make sense of them and help also in shaping the direction of this particular country. Karibu sana, my name is Mangicho Mola, and of course, on the other side, Bwana Paul Kagi is well with me right here.
Yes, good morning, Mangicho. How are you?
Good morning to you, Kagi. Good to see you today. How have you been?
I'm fantastic, thank God.
That's very, very nice. And of course, it's good to see you again today on this particular show.
Yes, dear viewer, welcome again to the Mid-Morning Park today, and we are here to be able to bring to light more of the issues which have been taking place for the last few days. My name is once again Paul Kagi. Stick around.
Very well, and of course, briefly, we'll also be looking at some of the issues that have actually been making headlines across this particular 1 week. But of course, at this particular juncture, let us introduce to you our topic of discussion or our subject of discussion, and this is a proposal that was brought by the Senator of Nandi County, that is Samson Cherargei, and it has elicited mixed reactions across the country, and we want to find out of what effect this kind of a proposal can actually have, especially if it was actually to be implemented. And of course, that is a proposal on the presidential term limit. Proposal on presidential term limit. Now, we have a question for you. Do you support the proposal to extend the presidential term limit from 5 years to 7 years? Do you support the proposal to extend the presidential term limit from 5 years to 7 years? That is a question that we are putting out to you there. And of course, we'll be getting into the nitty-gritties of this particular discussion. We have a guest who will be joining us later on in this particular discussion. That is Bwana Ben Gadhogo. He's a political analyst and a governance expert. He will be here also to give us his perspectives and be able to see of what value would this be, and what effect can it actually have in our county. Now, it is a proposal that has just come. You're not saying that it is now going to be implemented, but of course, when we have a proposal coming from a leader of that kind of a caliber, then it basically means it is something that is worth to be analyzed, and also to be able to help our viewer and to also help you, our citizen, to make informed choices. Were something like this to come maybe in a referendum scenario or something like that. So of course, we've put out the question for you right there. Feel free to interact with us. You can begin now to give us your opinions on the same. You know the drill. You can get us through our shortcut platform, that is 23814, 23814. And I know we also have the darlings of the social media. You can catch us live on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and for YouTube, that is MBCI TV official. A comment or two will be appreciated a lot. And even as we continue with this particular discussion, we'll be able to sample some of your comments on the same. But before we get into that, Bwana Kagi, you're telling me we've also witnessed other issues also making key headlines across this 1 week.
Yeah, very well, Mangicho, and there are many issues that have been going on in our country for the last few days. One of the major issues which I have really observed for the last few days is regarding to the National Dialogue Committee, which is holding its sittings at Bomas of Kenya. And there are two issues which are arising from that committee. One, there has been various submissions that have been made by various stakeholders, be it politicians, be it civil societies, be it even public. And by the look of things, as even it was reported today in the dailies, is that there is coming up a sort of a similar scenario of the BBI, whereby the proposals given to the committee are the same proposals given to this National Dialogue Committee, which may emanate the so controversial BBI,
Right.
though it may have a different name, but by the look of things, that is where we are heading to. Although the Law Society of Kenya is very much against any form of constitutional change, and they are saying this is not the time for us to have a referendum because of the cost of living. And therefore, we are really following up this matter. And of course, Mangicho, you could ask yourself, what is going to happen with all these recommendations?
Oh, sure, sure.
Because this committee has no mandate to be able to implement all these submissions. And therefore, by the end of it all, it must go into a legal way.
Sure.
And I believe also that slowly we are sliding down to the former BBI.
Yeah, very interesting, Kagi. And this is a matter that, of course, is coming at a time when people are actually questioning the sincerity of some of our politicians, and especially when they are handling key issues or matters actually affecting the public, the common wananchi, the average Kenyan, because it would actually be very ironical and actually very unfortunate that if we are just reintroducing BBI, which most of these leaders were actually against in the run-up to the 2022 general election. And there are those reasons that they gave when this issue of BBI was coming up. And now one wonders, why are they not bringing those issues this time round? Is it a matter of when it suits me, then I can actually, or when it fits me, or when it is about my political interest, then that is when I can actually be comfortable, or I can actually feel comfortable maybe to support it. Because like you've rightly put it, Kagin, some of the things that you are witnessing are the same things, because it all comes down to issue of inclusivity, the issue of when we are coming during elections and some Kenyans feeling that maybe they have been alienated, they have been discriminated, and all this. And I think, if I can remember well, this is one of the issues that the BBI wanted to cure. So it is coming up again, and one is actually wondering, so are we going back to the same thing? And I've actually seen even today, remember initially we were told that this particular committee, the National Dialogue Committee, most Kenyans were against it, and actually even the government side was against it in relation maybe to the cost that maybe it is going to incur. Yeah. But according to the papers today is that if this particular talks and if this particular dialogue will continue, it will actually cost the Kenyan taxpayer over 100 million Kenya shillings, just to make sure that they come up with some of these proposals and some of these recommendations, which the Kenyan will actually be waiting to find out how crucial, how critical it is going to be in their life. And finally, maybe my thinking is, yes. Any form of changes, any form of maybe legal changes, it is going to go two ways. One might go through Parliament, because there are some areas which can be amended through only Parliament, but there are some areas which can only be amended through the referendum. Okay. So I think they are going to settle down on that. But if it is for the good of our nation, if people are agreeing, you know, the issue here is, are we agreeing as Kenyans? You know, the problem would be if this group is talking this, the other one is talking this. Right. But again, we need to understand, because the National Dialogue Committee is a team by its own by now, because it's comprising the government side and the opposition side. And then we should look at the public side. So we have two sides here, the public and the National Dialogue Committee. Sure. We need to understand what is the position of public on this matter. Right? Yeah. There was another issue, Mangicho, which was which came out 3 days ago regarding to the reforms in coffee sector. And you are aware that this matter has been in the heart of the Deputy President. And 3 days ago, he made a very weird revelation, an admission that they have been defeated by the cartels. Remember last time we talked about the cartels, whether they are human beings or they are whoever, nobody knows who are they, but they have a very, very scary name, the cartels. And the DP admitted that these people are blackmailing the government, and it's as if by now the DP has raised his hands. They are saying they have been defeated by these guys. You know, I'm also interested to understand how are these guys operating. Yes. In a way, even the government itself can be able to admit, now we are defeated. Pray for us, you know. And the DP was saying in the milk sector, they have managed,
although they are not yet there. In the tea sector, they have managed, though not yet there. But the issue of coffee, they are at 0 point, right?
But of course, Kage, you'll remember that the president said for all those cartels that have been causing and wreaking havoc in the country, there are 3 things. That particular expression is still very fresh in most of the Kenyans' mind.
Yes.
And I don't know in what kind of scenario, or I don't know what was the thinking of the deputy president maybe in saying this. I don't want to believe that he's admitting that maybe the government hand has been tied and there is nothing that maybe they can do, because I believe there is need, and every government of the day should have the full capacity to deal with every kind of a challenge, or every kind, because it has all the instruments of power, and therefore, and I don't think these people are beyond maybe the control of the government. So I don't know exactly what he meant, but bearing in mind also, Kagi, that we have a lot of Kenyans, farmers across different regions in this particular country, who are actually dependent on farming, in this particular case, maybe in the coffee sector and also maybe in the tea sector, just like maybe farmers in other sectors like the meat sector, who are actually dependent on this particular farming to actually be in a position to fend for their families and to put something on the table. So I think, and the government actually was very categorical, even when it was campaigning, that it would look into the welfare and into the plight of these farmers. And therefore, I just want to believe that they have to do everything that is within their reach to ensure that they actually take care.
And this reminds me, Mangicho, many years back when I was in primary school, one of the questions that you could not miss in the past papers was name the 3 foreign earning
produce
in Kenya.
One of them was coffee.
Yeah, there could be coffee, there could be tea. I don't know the other one was what, but coffee was one of them, and paredra.
And paredra, yeah, by the way.
So they could mix maize, beans.
Yeah.
And
it's true. There was a time when when you are a paredra farmer in this country, actually, and you're actually coming from the village, there is that respect that you would actually get or earn even from maybe your peers.
I don't know whether today those questions still feature in our past papers.
Most of them, we have to agree, most of them have actually been disenfranchised. Most of them have actually been disillusioned because of these particular schemes, weird schemes that you're talking about, that have been brought out by the cartels that have been operating in this sector.
Can we say today that tourism is the highest earning foreign earner in our economy? Maybe or maybe
yeah,
not.
it could be possible. And you are mentioning tourism, and today is, I think today, and today is actually the International Day for Tourism.
Yes.
So,
So, and you know that a few months ago, as the government was trying to look for ways to caution Kenyans against the high cost of fuel, Monday, the government started paying off the fuel they got from the Gulf oil companies, which was meant to help to caution Kenyans against the high cost of petroleum. And the first batch of 35 billion shillings was paid on Monday, and they were given, the Kenya was being supplied oil on debt, which they were supposed to start paying after 6 months. And the good thing now is that the government, through the Ministry of Energy and the Finance, they have started paying off that debt, which was supplied by 2 companies.
okay.
And the reason that made the government to go that way is to be able to look for a way, because the government was complaining that whenever they are going to import oil, which was an exchange between a shilling and a dollar, it was inflating the price of fuel in the country. And they were feeling that if they engage another company whereby they are not dealing with dollar one by one, it is going to help us to be able to lower the cost of petroleum, which I think has not really worked as per now, but we hope along the way things are going to change.
Absolutely. That is something that we can actually hope for, considering that most Kenyans are actually going through a lot, especially when there was announced the increment in the prices of fuel, and of course, which also has the subsequent increase in a number of basic commodities that are being used by the average Kenyan. And therefore, if there are any strategies, if there are any efforts that maybe the government is actually coming up with to ensure that this particular issue is looked into, those kind of strategies are very well welcomed. Now, Kagi, there is another interesting story from the education sector, and I don't know whether you saw this one. There is a recommendation that has been brought out that will now take effect, and what it means is that for students who are actually even in high school, there is now there is only one subject that will be mandatory, that is mathematics. And then students will now be required to choose between Kiswahili and English as a mandatory subject. And now the other subject, it's upon all the student to be able to choose.
I think personally, I welcome the move. Personally, I do that. And I could feel I wish it was introduced when I was in high school because of the nature of the situation that time.
Although I've seen some fears and some concerns from Kenyans that most students are going to shun the sciences.
That one is going to be there.
There is a perception that the sciences are difficult. I don't know whether it is a perception or whether it is actually.
But you see, Mangicho, we are gifted differently.
Yes.
And I was trying to analyze the move by the Ministry of Education. You know, there's a student who is very good in arts. Issues with science is zero. And that student, if he can be able to do better in arts, that means there is an area he is better wired than other areas. Another student is better in science and is very poor in arts. And therefore, this student who is doing science is better wired in certain area. But if you do them, if you generalize everything to them, it is punishing some students, especially those who are not good in science. Because those who are good in science are also better in arts. Those who are good in science, in arts, are poor in science. And I think it's a way of relooking in a way of bringing a fair playing ground in our education sector. But I feel the issue of physics and chemistry, sometimes it troubles a lot of students in our schools. You know that. I don't know whether you're one of them, Mangicho.
I think it's quite an interesting one, and somebody has actually also made some fun on the social media, especially for Kiswahili, because now one has to choose between Kiswahili and English. And you know there is that expression that we've always had in Kiswahili, Kiswahili kitukuzwe. Now, from that particular proposal that the government has come up with, people are saying Kiswahili kifukuzwe.
but with Swahili, Mangicho, I have been following the Swahili curriculum as a lover of Swahili, and I feel there must be radical reforms in our Swahili curriculum. It is not useful to anybody. Grammar, English is okay because it has some useful stuff there. But for Swahili, as a lover of Swahili, personally, I feel challenged. But we need to come up with a better curriculum to allow our students, especially in primary school, to love Kiswahili. And also because we have advocated it to become a national language. How can we love this language, which already is carrying our students right from primary school, all right? And therefore, we need to have good reforms to bring a more friendlier curriculum to be able to, not to punish students, and to make them love this language.
Yeah, we'll continue to see, and maybe I know different people, especially in the education sector, will also be coming up with the different opinions on that particular issue, and to see how critical this will be, because I know different people have different perspectives on them, especially also considering maybe the market dynamics as far as education is concerned.
Right.
And I think at this particular juncture, Kagi, we can introduce, we can rope in our guest for today's discussion, and that is Bwana Ben Gadhogo, is a political analyst and also a governance expert. Karibu sana to the Mid-Morning Park. It's good to have you today.
Asante sana. Good morning, viewers.
How have you been, Bwana Gadhogo?
I've been okay.
Yes.
For the past 1 week, the Lord has protected us.
Yes.
Yes, and we're happy.
Karibu sana, and we are happy also to have you today on this particular show. I know our main topic for today is the proposal on the presidential term limit, but before we get into that, what is your very quick opinion on the proposal from the education sector?
Very interesting, because Kiswahili is becoming a leading language in Africa. It has been adopted as an African language from South Africa to Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, all the way. It's one of the leading now languages in Africa. So it's very, very important. It's also a career path to most of the graduates in the sector, because a lot of teachers are going to be required to go and teach Kiswahili in all these other African countries. Because much as also we are building blocks, we are building Pan-Africanism. And one of the joining or uniting factors of people is one common language, probably a common currency, and as we move on. So Kiswahili is going to be very, very important. And yeah, English, yes, but Kiswahili is now gaining currency as a language of Africans.
Okay.
So as we say, Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
So do you think it is in the right? Do you appreciate maybe the wisdom behind the proposal, therefore, to want to make Kiswahili become an optional instead of maybe making it mandatory, as it were?
I would propose it becomes mandatory, because anything that offers career path, especially to Kenyans, and again the foreign earner of this republic today is foreign remittances, where money flows from Kenyans who've gone to the diaspora and they're sending money back. So anything that can be able to, and we are an non-resource-based economy.
The highest earner, the foreign remittances is the highest.
It's the highest earner, actually. Yeah, it overtook coffee, tea, and a few years ago, and tourism a few years ago. The money that flows from the people we send outside the country is the leading earner now today in this republic. And Kenya is a non-resource-based economy. We don't have gold, we don't have oil, we don't have all those things that we export apart from maybe agricultural produce. But we have something very important, which is the human resource.
Okay.
So if we can be able to develop our human resource, it's a very important investment that can be able to pay back. And because Kenyan professionals are respected the world over, you go everywhere, they are respected. So tinkering with the education sector, unless there are very abiding reasons as to why we are going that way, I would say Kiswahili remains mandatory, English remains mandatory for the reasons I have given.
Yes.
And I buy the idea about some people are gifted scientifically, others arts. So with the CBC, that should come out clearly so that we cannot, we should not overburden people with things that they will not use in future.
Very good. What is your take on Deputy President Gachagua on the coffee sector, saying that they have been cornered by these cartels?
Yeah, we have a very big problem.
Yes.
We have a very, very big problem with the so-called cartels. Because these are people who progressively move from one government to another. And one
they move with the government.
Yeah, they move with government.
They're very strategic.
The moment money becomes the currency to drive political agenda, money will be required. And most of this money is not clean. So it's, you have to bend over backward to accommodate people, because every time they are we are in an election.
So one of the reasons, Bonagadogo, that is very difficult to end or to eliminate these cartels is because they contribute a lot and they participate a lot in putting the government of the day.
That is it. The second thing that we've done since 1953, 54, I think, when coffee was introduced, we've not improved, we've not mechanized. We are still selling beans the same way our forefather, not our grandfather, our forefathers used to do. So the thing to do, if you wanted to fight cartels, is actually to have a complete supply chain from the farmer to the supermarkets, so that you produce Kenyan tea. So once you produce Kenyan tea, we are saying a factory is so developed that it can be able to give out its beans, its complete product to a supermarket in Europe. But so long as the supply chain is disjointed in between production and consumption, you are going to give a lot of room for all these cartels and any other person who can disturb the supply chain. Our coffee is the best. Our coffee is used to blend others. And we should be actually importing coffee and blending with ours and then exporting, not the other way around. Like our Kenyan coffee is sold in Switzerland as coffee made in Switzerland. Yet we don't have a single coffee tree
in Switzerland.
And again, the price of our coffee per kg a few years ago was 3,000 per kg. But a farmer here gets about 50 or some money, which actually the disparity between that and what is sold in Switzerland is as if we farm for Switzerland. It's as if we work for the Switzerland to sell our coffee. And we have all these people who've gone to school, MBAs who can be able to look at the supply chain, marketing graduates who can be able to market our tea. The world is now a global village. So while fighting cartels, you don't fight literally. What you do is you change the way the coffee is produced, and the way it is sold, and the way that money actually plugs back to the farmer.
And I was asking, you remember the way the president was handling the issue of coffee? Very boldly, not coffee, but sugar.
Sugar.
In the Western region.
Yeah.
I think and also use the same formula in handling these cartels in Mount Kenya, who are
what has he achieved in sugar? Because those are hard questions. Kenya is a member of COMESA. Producing sugar in this country is a loose business, a loss-making business from the word go. Because the sugar sold outside the kiosk. There's a kiosk just outside Mumias. The sugar is cheaper from Uganda than it is from Mumias store. That is the reality on the ground. So how much billions did the country lose? 92 billions was the money that was used now to clear the debts. If a company can actually incur a debt of 92 billion, turning it around and making it a profitable outfit is mission impossible. Yeah. So we may try to fight with some of these things, but it's not possible. Sugar in Kenya will take 18 months. In Uganda, I think it's a year. The cost of power in Kenya is higher than the cost of power next door in Uganda. So much as you'd want to, to have the old days when, we would have crossed our borders and we will consume our sugar, it is not possible. So there are things that are purely economical, and the moment you introduce politics, you cannot. And, business is 1 + 1 is 2. So 1 - 1 is 0. Sure. So, and it makes sense to import what you cannot grow, or to find areas where now you can grow sugar.
Let's just take a short break, Bwana Gathogo, and then we'll come and we'll give you an opportunity to wind up on that particular point. Remember, you're watching the Mid-Morning Pack right here on MBCI TV. You're coming back with much more, including our main area of discussion or focus today, that is a debate or the proposal on the presidential term limit. Keep it right here.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo katika uchumi wa kitaifa. Akili Shambani inakufunza mbinu mbalimbali za kilimo cha mimea na ufugaji. Tunavuka milima na mabonde kukuelimisha mengi kuhusu ubunifu na teknolojia katika kilimo. Yote 9, 10 ni masoko, nayo je?
Tunahusika na mkulima kutoka kwa shamba hadi sokoni.
Fahamu haya na mengine mengi kuhusu kilimo kwenye Akili Shambani kila Jumatano saa 1:30 usiku, ukiletewa nami Enaeli Mlinga.
Are you tired of searching for the perfect hardware and interior decor solution? Look no further. Introducing Roomish Hardware and Interiors, your one-stop destination for all your hardware needs, right here in Nakuru City. At Roomish Hardware and Interiors, we pride ourselves in offering a wide range of high-quality hardware products, from door and window accessories, plumbing and gutter accessories, sanitary wares, kitchen accessories, power tools, marble boards. We have it all. Whether you are a homeowner, a fundi, or a professional contractor, we have the right tools and materials for your project. But that's not all. Roomish Hardware and Interiors is more than just a store. Our team of knowledgeable experts is always ready to assist you with any questions or concerns you may have. Need advice on which tank to buy or brand of cement? We've got you covered. And the best part? Roomish Hardware and Interior offers competitive prices that won't break the bank. So, why wait? Visit Roomish Hardware and Interiors today and discover the ultimate hardware shopping experience in Nakuru, conveniently located at Lower Bedi Road to serve you better. Roomish Hardwares and Interiors, your hardware solution in Nakuru.
Hi there, my name is George Washuri, CEO Optiven Group, and I'm very excited to introduce Ushidi Gardens Nakuru. This property is developed by Optiven, and we are doing compact and maram roads. We plant the trees, fence the property. What's unique about this property? It's only 1.2 kilometers off the highway and 18 minutes from Nakuru City, the pink city. So please call this number 0790 300 300. Optiven, we have you covered.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Welcome back. You're still joining us right here on MBCI TV, and you're watching the Mid-Morning Pack. We are glad that you are with us on this beautiful Wednesday, the 27th of September 2023. We are having a discussion right here in this particular platform, and this is a subject that had actually been proposed and also continues to elicit mixed reactions across the country, with most Kenyans feeling very angered by this particular proposal by the senator from Nandi County, that is Samson Cherargei, on the extension of the presidential term limit from 5 years to 7 years now. What kind of effect, what kind of impact can a proposal like this one have, were it maybe to be implemented and also maybe anchored in the Constitution? That is what we want to look at today. Of course, our guest for today is Bwana Ben Gadhogo. He's a political analyst and also a governance expert, helping us to get into the heart and the soul of this particular conversation. And we're also inviting your comments and your proposals, your perspectives on our discussion on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV. On YouTube, you can catch us live on our YouTube page, that is MBCI TV Official, or feel free to write on our shortcut platform, that is 23814. We'll be glad to also find out what are some of your perspectives or what are some of your opinions on this. Now, Bwana Gadhogo, let me just now get or bring you into our main area of discussion, and that is on this particular proposal on the presidential term limit. And of course, Samson Cherargei coming up with this particular proposal, and most Kenyans are becoming very, very wild. But from where you see it, how does Senator maybe of that caliber, holding such a very, very high position or a high office in the country, come up with a proposal like this without maybe looking at some maybe of the repercussions that it can actually have?
We could begin by questioning just the jurisprudence behind that, the wisdom of the law that is proposing behind that. Partly because it is a very emotive subject, because one of the reasons why we enacted the new constitution was about the term limit of the president. In 1982, we actually removed the term limit, and the proposal was made by Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki and seconded by Jonjo one lazy afternoon in Parliament, and from there it became not only one single party state, but the president had almost like a lifetime presidency.
President for life.
Yeah, for life. 10 years down the line, the same people who had proposed the amendment to have a single party and therefore maybe granting the president, an limitless term limit, were the same people who were crying the loudest that we should remove. So in 1992, 10 years from 1982, when the first amendment was moved, in 1992, the then President Moi conceded to remove the Article 2A of the old constitution so that we would revert to multipartism, and in that also the term limit was put.
Okay.
So Moi reigned number one with almost like a limitless term, and then from 1992 he was reined in from 92 to 2002. So it is something with some history. The next thing that we should now question is that why now? It is only 1 year that Mheshimiwa William Ruto has served as president of this republic. He has, in a way, if things go the way they go in Kenya, another 9 years. Why would we be talking about extending that term limit to 7 years? But to me, what I would first look at is that now the endless campaigns that will be going on throughout the year, because the MP's term will still be 5 years. And if it is 5 years, it therefore means after 5 years, you have this, everybody is going, they are seeking for votes. 2 years down the line, now you have the president also going throughout the country. And the cost of the vote in Kenya is the highest in the world. So we cannot even afford it when it is only 5 years.
Okay.
So where are we getting the money when now we have two elections within the same term limit? And the third point is why? What is necessitating going back? And just as we did during 1982, I'm foreseen as moving that way and also moving forward. Why? Politicians are the same. And the same reason why we change, babies' napkins, and the same reason why we change politicians. Getting an opportunity to get somebody else, getting an opportunity to get fresh ideas that can move the country forward. So there's no very big, justification as to that proposal, unless there's one that is hidden that has not come forward.
So, Bwana, according to him, before I bring Kagi, the justification, or according to him, the basis for coming up with this particular proposal is that we waste almost 2 years in every 5 years when you have a president that has been elected. So his argument is that once a president is elected, the very, very first year in his office, there is very little that is done. Why? Because there is the entire legal litigations, maybe from his opponents, who are maybe now appealing or who are disputing his victory. And he's also arguing that the very last year, there is also very little that is done by the government, because now the entire country again has come to the campaign mode. And therefore that leaves with the government and maybe the president with the 3 years, which according to him is very little to actually provide any meaningful services to the people in the country.
People of Kenya. First of all is that in a democratic system, every party comes out with a manifesto. So you go to the people with a concrete plan from day one what you are going to do. And in fact, we see that happening. From day one, the president had said we are going to lower the cost of unga. Was it unga? We are going to do this. So every man who vies for a political office must have a concrete plan that will come to be implemented. And given politics in Kenya wastes a lot of time because there will be litigation. There will also be like mandamanos immediately after, you know, if you are to go over the past. There will be all that. But that should be cured in other ways. Because now, are we saying that for 2 years, we will not be doing much? Because actually what the president is doing.
So his thinking is that if we had 7 years, if we could waste maybe the 2 years, maybe in campaigns and litigation, then 5 years will be enough.
Wasting 2 years so that one single office can actually be, you know, can actually have some comfort zone is a more expensive exercise to the Kenyans than actually allowing things the way they are. But yeah, given a president should be given time to settle, and therefore that's why he's given the world over 100 days that are called the maiden days. During that time, you are expected to form your government. You are expected to reinforce your policy. You are expected now to, you know, to lead the country in a given way. But we are not saying the constitution is perfect. We are saying the gaps we should identify, like in the route of presidency. Positive criticism about the route of presidency is that he came in during a recession. And that must be said openly. That when Ruto was coming in, the economy was going down. So at this particular time, instead of maybe the increase of terms and stuff, what should happen is, like, you know, calling like for a national dialogue on the way to move out of a recession, because a recession is like a war. The Kenyan shilling here is now going to hit 160. And if it continues sliding down the dollar the way it is going, we are going to double our debts. We borrowed 100 shillings, but we are going to be paying 200 shillings. You are getting that, and there's nothing which that money has done, apart from you borrowed and the shilling is sliding. So at this particular time, what should pain us is the sliding of the Kenyan shilling, rather than anything else in this republic. Because with this, what will happen is that our debt will reach a point where we cannot be able to pay. The other time I was here, I told you we were already downgraded, you know, from those good borrowers who borrow and they repay. Now we are in the B category, where when you go to the bank, there are people who will be given money because the bank trusts that they will repay anyhow. But there's you and me, who the bank is not very sure about us, and they must ask for collateral. You are getting the difference. And the people who get the money freely get it at a lower interest rate. Did you know that? Yeah, they are getting the money free. They walk to a bank, come up with 20 million. You go to the bank, ask for 1 million, and you'll be asked for a title deed. You'll be asked for, you know, all those other documents. So at this particular time, unless this debate is being used as a diversionary tactics, so that people now start trading their guns there and forget about what is pertinent, the route of government should be supported on the basis of fighting recession. If you give me any other thing at this particular time, I will say we'll be wasting, you know, resources in trying to give people a debate that may not add any specific meaning. Because 10 years.
So according to you, it is a totally misplaced kind of idea.
At this particular time, at this particular point, I think what should be happening is that we should all be fighting for our shilling, because that is going to kill us faster than even if you are given like 10 more years and the shilling is sliding this way.
But Nagazoga, because I know President Ruto coming to 2027, of course, will be back to the Kenyans, and you'll be telling Kenyans that maybe the issues that I was supposed to maybe to do this time maybe was short, and maybe coupled with some of the challenges that maybe my government faced, I require you, or I would actually request you to give me 5 more years.
I cannot buy that.
Is there anything that like that?
I cannot buy that. Because when you are entering, you knew that the time required, we work in different sectors where you are given timelines, and you are told, do this proposal with this time limit. It can only be extended under very extraneous circumstances. Probably those are probably those things. But if you have 10 years, that you have, really you have 10 years, tell me what you'll do in 2 years, what you cannot do in 8. There is that. But if President Ruto was to come in 2027 and said, I have managed a recession, the same way Kibaki came in 2007 and said, I came in when the coffers were dry, I came in when there was a recession, I've managed it, and now you can trust me. In fact, his clarion call then was, Kazi iendelee. Meaning, I've started it, and if you give me 5 more years, I'm going to steady the ship. And he did. For 10 years, we did not even need the IMF telling us whatever conditions now they're imposing on us. Then came Uhuru Kenyatta. Unfortunately, the economic circle will not respect you, even if you added those 2 years. It will happen, there will be a recession. There's also be years where the economy will be performing. So if President Ruto was to come back and say, I've managed the recession, I've done this, and I require 5 more years to steady the ship, I would respect him a lot. But then I wanted to give you a story. But during the CKLC constitutional review exercise here at Nyaon Garden, there was that debate that Moi has done 2 terms under the old constitution. And still, and since we are amending or reenacting a new constitution, there were a lot of people around him who are saying now he should go for 2 terms under the new constitution. It got me into a lot of trouble because I was, as a young man, very vibrant from the university leadership, I stood up and said, if President Moi is to be respected for his 24 years in office, is to leave office after his 2 terms. He could have done a lot of good things and bad things, because if you stay wrong, the chances that you do a lot of good things and bad things are there. But if he tries to extend a single day, those were my words, a single day in office, he's not going to be the president of Kenya, he's going to be a warlord. It got me into a lot of trouble. In fact, the Catholic Church had to evacuate me to some monastery in Karen, because I was saying that in front of the then president, the president who is here today, Ruto, Sunkuri, Koske, you know, the big guns of Karen during those days. So I can still repeat it to President Ruto. You came into office when the country was under a recession. We respect and expect that you can actually fight. We can support that. But anything that comes with the extension of the term or the removal of the term, would say, Mr. President, with all due respect, reject that route.
All right.
And we've seen that. We've seen Museveni coming in and saying you only do 7 years. Museveni became president of Uganda in 1985. He's still the president today. We've seen Kagame in 1991 saying I only do 2 terms. He's extended his term. So where's the opposition leader in Uganda? BCG. BCG cannot even address a small media conference outside his house safely. The opposition leader in Rwanda is in jail. That lady is in jail as we are talking. So the road to dictatorship begins by extension of term limits, then removing the term limits, then somebody becomes a live president, and at that juncture, he is unsure of leaving office because he's gathered enough enemies who could finish him any time. But here in Kenya, we set very good example. Moi left after 10 years, despite the coterie allowed him, telling him to extend. Kibaki did his 10 years, left, even in spite of you'd have said, you know, I came when the country was very poor, I fought recession, please give me another term to enjoy. He left. Uhuru came, and despite of him not supporting the current president, he left. So we've set out a very good democratic tradition that is the envy of very many nations surrounding us, that 10 years, an African president can actually serve and leave. And I wanted also to add that Kibaki intended for Musalia Mudavadi to be the president, and he rose out in that path, and he went out quietly. Uhuru Kenyatta has left quietly. So that tradition that, you know, there will be mandamano, there will be something, it's not something new.
Okay, what was your point?
Yeah, I think you're talking about is not the right time for these changes.
Yeah.
But don't you think this is a very strategic move? Though it is not timely for now, but the end game is already there. I was looking at the history of the extension of the term limit, and right before elections, there was that talk among the people that we feel that the KK comes into the office, the first thing they might do, the public, is to remove the term limit. So public was already cautioned, even without any kind of a talk, that could happen. Number two, there was one legislature from, I think, Northeastern, was proposing for the removal of term limit. Now comes the Gerald Gay, who is also a close ally of the president. Gavoko, don't you feel this is a well-orchestrated move and a big program of testing waters?
And of course, even as you answer that particular question, you can also relate it to maybe what we've already gotten maybe from the UDA party, which has distanced itself from the sentiments from Cherargei. I also believe the party again also distanced itself from the member of parliament from Northeastern. I actually think that there are 3 members of parliament or 3 leaders who have come up with this particular proposal. So are these lone rangers, or is there that meets the eye?
I buy the idea of testing water, that you can test the water and hear whether the public can go with you. The Kenyan leadership is very sweet, because from the streets, if you become elected, things change somehow. These talks that we are having, they have already gobbled down 102 million. And 2 million.
And initially we had been told that the leaders would carry some tea and mandazis from their houses.
And take. So there's always that temptation that if we stay a little bit longer, it is good for us. And again, I usually tell people that Kenya is a people nation, where the president who is supposed to be the symbol of national unity may or may not be. He can be used as like tutaonyesha, this is our time. Or he can be used like a really symbol of national unity, whereby he unites the people. And we are only 60 years old. In politics, that is very young. In politics, that is very young. It's very easy to slide back to bad old days. And we saw that during the past mandamano, where like the force that was used, it was last used during Kanu's dark era. The legal wheel was subverted, whereby somebody is detained for 5 days, and then presented in a court of law, and the judge admits those charges. Those charges immediately ought to be dropped. I mean, where was this individual in 24 hours? You are getting. So the moment you lose those human rights that so many people fought for, you are sliding slowly into anarchy. The moment now we'll say now, you know, like increase the term limit. What will also happen is that it is followed by gerrymandering of constituencies. At this particular time, the exercise that we are doing is IBC. But what are we hearing? We are hearing the economy is performing very poorly. But because it is performing very poorly, we need to add more counties. And the counties are one of the reasons why our economy is not performing very well. Because out of the 47, only five can be able to sustain themselves. The rest, 42, are basket cases. Actually, they depend on what will come from Nairobi. So, do we want to add more basket cases or remove some, you know, join some? Because what we had said in 2010, we had said we failed as a nation to stay together. Let us, number one, part in these counties, and then join again into one nation. And therefore, we refuse to go the federal way. We did not automatically say we are the federal government of Nakuru. We say the county government of Nakuru, because much as it is a government, it is also joined to the national government of Kenya. So we operate 48 governments in this republic. So after gerrymandering, what happens? There's usually going back to, you know, a single party state, or if it's not a single party state, where you have a very dominant party, like akin to ANC, akin to Chama cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania, where that ideologue becomes like a form of dictatorship, because if you're outside that party, forget about getting to leadership.
And so, Bwana even as we talk about that, and of course, like people are saying, and the many Kenyans, of course, we've heard the opposition dismissing Cherargei's proposal and also calling him to order, and maybe even some people are also maybe waiting to hear what maybe the president is going to say about this. But do you really think he should even maybe talk about it?
No, talking about it is okay. There is freedom of expression. But
I'm talking about the president.
Or the president,
yes,
to address it.
Now that this particular debate is out there, and there are those maybe who believe, like you said, maybe it is the matter of testing the waters. Maybe it is coming from the inner sanctums of government.
The president may choose to.
And some Kenyans are just maybe thinking that Cherargei is just being used as a Trojan horse.
Yes. The president may keep to remain silent, which is his right. The president may choose to bring the subject to rest and say, as a Democrat, I'm only going to do 10 years if God allows. Or the president may say, whatever way it pans out, it does not affect me. But as I said earlier, the president has his plate full, and it is something to do with the economy. At this particular time, if I was in government and doing the first year, I would actually do much so that the people themselves can say, you know, this president actually took us out of a recession and certain those things. But if like we are still doing poorly, and then you are telling us we had you more time, it sounds more like an abuse, though it is not his making. The recession is not his making. Right. But how many Kenyans would know that or understand that? The Kenyans now are looking at government and saying, petrol imeenda juu. I can no longer afford a packet of maize. So to the people who are looking for solutions from the government, when now there will be more time, they are looking at it as, you know, more time of punishment. Sure. But if you arrest the situation, and then now when everything is working on well, you can be able to, you know, even test the waters even further and try to make it as a debate.
Let us have our reporter, that is Vincent Kimtai, then we can actually pick up from where Bwana Gathogo has left. But we always have this particular segment where we get our reporter Vincent Kimtai also interacting with a number of Kenyans on the subject of discussion. And of course, we sent him out to also find out what are Kenyans thinking about this particular proposal. Are they supporting the extension of presidential term limit from 5 years to 7 years, or are they against it? Vincent Kimtai, give us what Kenyans are saying about this particular subject.
Mwandicho Mola pamoja na Paul Kagi, hapa hivi nitakuwa nikizungumza na Wakenya kuhusiana na pendekezo lilotolewa na seneta wa Nandi Samson Cherargei la kutaka muhula wa rais kuongezwa kutoka miaka 5 hadi miaka 7 humu nchini. Ni pendekezo ambalo limeibua hisia miongoni mwa viongozi mbalimbali pamoja na wananchi humu nchini. Cherargei akidai kuwa pendekezo hilo litaweza kumsaidia rais kutimiza manifesto yake kwa Wakenya kutokana na kuwa muda wa miaka 5 ni mchache mno. Na hapa hivi nitazungumza na Wakenya kuhusiana na pendekezo hilo, kama wanaiunga mkono au hawaiungi mkono.
My name is Geoffrey Wycliffe Muganda, and I don't support the issue that you put across, because one thing is current life is really hard and people are struggling. Kuna vile kuna msukumo mahali, kuna vile anasukumwa mahali, so that hii ni kama cover up. No, mimi napendekeza kwa serikali ya kwamba wa create nafasi za kazi ndio vijana wapate kazi, because kila mahali vijana wana struggle na ni the whole country. Unaona vile mambo ya mafuta imepanda juu, maisha imepanda juu, some people hawezi afford ile meal mara 3 mtu hawezi manage, so inakuwa pengine mtu anaamua wacha nikule mara moja and that then yes.
Kuhusiana na jambo hilo, ni jambo ambalo limetokezea, lakini mimi mwenyewe naweza sema tu kwamba itategemea vile watashughulika pale, kama watapitisha, lakini ni jambo ambalo nilikuwa naona ikiwa wanaweza kuenda kama vile walikuwa wameweka kwenye constitution, itakuwa ni sawa.
Siasa, you know, this country, it has got funny people. Kila wakati muhula moja ukiingia, hatukosagi funny people. But you see, that thing is very difficult, because unajua hii ni kitu itaenda referendum. So at the moment, wacha tu ni kama there is something Kikuyu wanasema togege. So those people who speak a lot, but they don't do things. And it is difficult to do it, by the way, because that thing must be brought down to the ground, kwetu sisi tuipigie kura ndio ipite referendum, nothing more. Kwangu, maoni yangu ni kelele tu anapiga yenye haitafanya kitu. It won't go anywhere.
Lakini tumeona imewasilishwa kwa Bomas of Kenya, penye mazungumzo yanaendelea. Na ukizingatia pale Bomas, kuna ile wanashughulikia, wanasema ni gharama ya maisha wanashughulikia, wamesema pia wanashughulikia masuala tofauti kuhusiana na IBC. Do you think hawa watu wanaweza ipatia uzito na wasahau maneno mengine?
Kuwasilisha Bomas, it is nothing. It is nothing, because after all, Mkenya sahi is not interested kwa siasa. Is interested kwamba maisha yake iweze kudumu na aweze kupata chakula kwa meza. At the moment, hata tukisikia wanasema hizo mambo za siasa, to us, sisi ndio tutaamua. After all, wakipeleka Bomas, it must come down to us according to the constitution. After all, it must come to us under referendum. So sisi ndio waamuzi.
Hiyo mimi I totally disagree with him, hiyo maada, kwa sababu mimi naona kama ataka kumisuse power na kuna craftiness au ujaja, na sijaiona our former presidents wenye wamekuwa, hakuna mwenye alisema wakati anafanya hadi unapeana that sword ati nimepeana lakini kazi ilikuwa nimemaliza, ati hiyo tamu ilikuwa short ya 5 years. Kwa hivyo mimi kulingana na vile naona, kwa maoni yangu, naona anakwamba kuna hidden agenda. Hiyo ni kama vile mtu ataweza kupiga geta indirect, au ni unasikia yule mnyama anaitwa puko anakulaga mizizi, unasikia miti imekauka. Kuna kitu kimefishika hapo, na sioni hakuna haja our constitution ibadilishwe at term ya president iongezewe. Sababu wanasemaga ni kusito, kwa nini wanataka iongezewe? Nasema hapana, tulipata kuko hivi. I am very neutral, lakini unajua tuna judge kulingana na yale maneno inaongelelewa. Ikikubaliwa hiyo, ikipita, nao wabunge pia wakasema waongezewe sasa miaka ingine. Governors nao watasema waongezewe. Unajua hii serikali inakuanga ni kama moto ikiwa kwa forest, ikiwa kapande ile unapata ime spread to the other end. Kwa hivyo hiyo kitu ikikubaliwa ikipita, unapata hata wengine wanataka hata waongeze, hata MC aseme nataka 7, na utaona ndio itakuwa that trade. Yeah. Na sasa watu wote wanajua wenye tunalipa na pesa zenye toka kwa kodi ya mwana Kenya.
After 5 years we do vote tukijua we have chosen the right person, then later they turn. Kama saizi economy imekuwa ngumu, hatuwezi sema tiko sawa, tunaumia. By the way, school fees ndio imepanda, food ndio zimepanda, but time walikuwa nataka hii kiti, walikuwa hizo ndio watu walikuwa natumia wakisema tutapunguza mafuta. Sasa hizi imepanda juu, walisema mafuta wale wengine wanaongeza. So sisi Kenya tunaweza omba president apunguze tu hizi vitu, but because 5 years itaisha tu na sisi ndio tutakuja kuvote. Haya, hata saa hizi hata sisi tunaweza omba taike hata 2 juu 2 jua ukienda 2 1 kama utaperform uende haraka juu hii jamaa anajua atakaa 5 years tena akaa ingine tena umuongeze 7. Haiwezi, hata sisi tuko against hiyo 7 hapana. Hiyo si maoni, hiyo ni kitu walikaa wakaplan, wakapanga, wakakaa chini wakakuja na that decision. You don't come with something yenye wewe umeform peke yako in government. Is a group of people that come together to form something. So huyu alikuwa tu puppet ya kusukuma aseme alafu wengine wasukume. But sisi kama wananchi we are against because tunaumia. Kama the first year huja perform, sasa hizi 7 years utaperform. Si unadanganyanga mtu na the first year, ya pili, alafu hata katikati ukipotea urudi ya mwisho, it makes sense. Ya kwanza huja perform, ya pili utaperform aje. So hizi the rest utaperform aje. Aya, tangu waingie kwa kiti, sasa vitu zinashuka zinaendelea zikipanda. Sasa hizi si president amebreak record ya mafuta. Huyo shaone je ifika hapo? Ijefika hapo. Alafu bado tunaambiwa tulieni tu.
Kwa majina ni Caroline Ateno Wino, na mimi sikubaliani na hiyo maneno ya president kuongezewa miaka zingine. Hata anafaa punguziwa ikuwe miaka 2. Miaka kama sasa ndio tunaumia hivyo, what about in the next 5 years?
Mimi kwa maoni yangu hiyo pendekazi serikali leta haistahili. Hii term ya 7 years ya nini? Kwa nini saizi wakati ya Ruto? Mbona hawakusema wakati ya Uhuru? Hii 5 years inatosha. President akae 5 years, kama atakuwa ametuongoza vizuri, aendelee kutuongoza. Na tamu nyingine tutampea tamu nyingine 5. Lakini akituongoza vibaya tutamwangusha tupe president mwingine. Hii mambo ya 7 years sijui inatoka wapi. Iko nchi nyingine inaenda 7 years. Ama ni hapa ndo tunataka kuanza nayo. Basi atuanze, tutakuwa kunaanza kila kitu. Hiyo tunapinga. Mambo ni 5 years imetosha. Ibuniwe ofisi ya waziri mkuu. Hiyo mimi nafikiri itakuwa imelegeza ile mioto ya upinzani. Kwa sababu hatuwezi kila mwaka tukishapiga kura alafu inakuwa ati tena tunaanza tena kuzushiana, huyu alishinda, huyu aliniibia. Tukipata hiyo kiti ya waziri mkuu, tukipata hiyo kiti ya upinzani, alafu tupate na hiyo kiti ya waziri mkuu, itakuwa imepunguza hii shida yote yenye tuko naye ya kisiasa.
Mangicho pamoja na Kagi, ni maoni ya Wakenya hayo kuhusiana na pendekezo la seneta wa Nandi Samson Cherargei, ambapo tumeona asilimia kubwa wakipinga huku wengine wachache wakiweza kuiunga mkono. Ni pendekezo ambalo limeweza kuibua hisia miongoni mwa viongozi wa kisiasa humu nchini, hasa viongozi wa upinzani wakipinga pendekezo hilo, wakisema kuwa Cherargei kuna msukumo ambao umetoka kwa serikali ambapo imemsukuma Cherargei kuweza kuibua pendekezo hilo. Hata hivyo, siku ya Jumatatu tuliona chama cha UDA kupitia katibu mkuu Cleophas Malala ikipinga pendekezo hilo, ikipinga msimamo wa Cherargei kusema kuwa pendekezo hilo alihusiana kwa vyote vile na chama cha UDA, wakisema hilo ni pendekezo lake kibinafsi. Jeremiah Kioni siku ya Jumanne akiweza kujitokeza na kusema kuwa pendekezo hilo ambalo Cherargei ameweza kuibua akilipinga. Hata hivyo akisema iwapo litaweza kupitishwa, basi litaweza kutumika kwa viongozi wajayo hata baada ya Rais William Ruto kuondoka mamlakani. Kufikia hapo Mangicho, ndipo narejesha nafasi kwenu mkaweze kuendelea. Jina langu ni Vincent Kimutai, nikiripotia kipindi cha Mid Morning Park MBCI TV.
Well, very great report there, and very good analysis and also opinions. Good job, our reporter there, Vincent Kimutai, right from the field. and from the streets, getting to interact with Kenyans, getting their opinions on this particular subject. And I think our viewer, as you have clearly seen, most Kenyans, I think virtually everyone that has been interviewed by our reporter Vincent Kimtai there is against this particular proposal. Bwana Kagi, you'll also come in on these. Even as we look at the 5 years, even now, even without necessarily looking at the issue of even extending to 7 years. But when we finish or when we come to the end of the first 5 years of our president, what do Kenyans really look into when they are now even choosing or deciding whether we are actually electing this particular president for another final 5-year lap? Or to actually get him home. And remember, in our country, I think we've not seen a situation whereby we've had a president who has only gone for 5 years and didn't make it for the other 5 years.
For the other 5 years.
Yes.
We have a huge problem in Kenya because our politics is devised by, tribal alliances. And it is very hard for a president not to go for 10 years unless something very huge happens.
So that is something that we cannot even think about. That in this particular country, a president can only go for 5 years.
We may think, but we are saying...
on the grounds of how he has performed.
Kenyans lack the tools to actually judge a president. Because remember, in other countries, a president is judged by the economy.
Right.
A lot of Kenyans, the economy is only solely based on the cost of living.
Are you saying the issue of economy doesn't come up when it comes now during the campaigns and Kenyans deciding whether they will bring back the president for another 5-year term?
The gap between the Kenyans' literacy on the economy, who are the voters, and those who are leading is very, very wide. It's very easy to, to tell Kenyans things that are impossible and they will believe. Because a Kenyan is taught that the government is the answer to all their problems. And you grow up knowing that you elect somebody so that they can help you directly. In fact, we want somebody, mtu yetu. Mtu yetu syndrome is so strong that it can cover a lot of years. But I also am a very big advocate of a chapter in the Constitution that we missed out. Which even at that particular time, I was a very big advocate for the same. That chapter is called, in other constitutions that is as ours, is called Directive Principles of State Policies. Directive Principles of State Policies tries to ask from political parties who are vying for president what they are going to do. So you say the economy is like this. There are so many youth who are out of jobs. We are going to do this and this and this, and at the end of the year, so when the president is making that the yearly national address, they ought to be saying, apart from Kibaki who was trying to do that, Uhuru never did that. Ruto is yet to do that. To say, I promised this number of jobs, I've been able to do this, and these are the circumstances that have prevented me from doing this. I promised, this number of kids are out of school.
But of course, for Ruto, it might be very early, maybe, to come up with that kind of a determination.
No, there's a year. He's done a year. So he ought to be giving us a yearly report. It's a constitutional requirement.
And you're talking about a year that has actually been coupled with a lot of those challenges that Cherargei is saying.
Tell us. You tell us. While addressing us, you tell us. And then you tell us, the farmers, I promised you, the maize, instead of importing, this, we reduce it this way. We've reduced it this way. So that we look at what you told us when you are campaigning and what you're actually achieving, and then we can be able to make, an informed decision. So a lot of people in power avoids that completely. So a chapter ought to be written in our Constitution on directive principles of state policy. Look at a subject like taxation. Nowadays, people are preferring for the government to give them the taxes and for the people to give them the salary. Because you are taxed when you are earning, you are taxed when you are traveling to come to work, you are taxed when you are buying, maize flour to go and cook, you are taxed when you are taking your kid to school. You are taxed everywhere. So if you are to be given all the taxes and the government take the salary, you are better off. So also the government also ought to come up with a cap for the amount of taxes they can tax you. Because now it is becoming horrendous. Because when it comes to like, give me the taxes, you take the salary, you know, that disparity is very wide. And we ought to have that chapter that we can only tax you to this much. And then we can offer you these services. Like if you are to say, I will tax you 50%. A lot of countries tax, keep the cap at 50%. But we are going to give you free education from nursery to university. We are going to give you free health care from, you know, from zero to when you die. We are going to ensure that you get a house. We are going to ensure that you get some education. You know, that becomes a measuring yard. So Kenyans lack that. And because they lack that, just about anybody can become the Kenyan president and offers completely nothing and live after 10 years without actually having done anything. So I am a very big advocate of having a chapter in our constitution, basically that give those measurements as to whether that president or that government is performing. And that is a chapter called Directive Principles of State Policy. And it can be borrowed from the Indian Constitution almost word by word. Because our rights are borrowed almost from the Indian Constitution. And we can also borrow that. So that we don't give rights that are there by only words, but in action, there's nothing.
And of course, before I bring Kagi in, because there is something that you've talked about, this particular syndrome that has become a major menace and affecting so many Kenyans, about the Mtuyetu syndrome in power. And one of the areas that we've actually heard becoming very loud against this particular proposal is emanating from the Western region. How do we deal with this? Because now there is now the perception that after 20, of course, according to them, believing that Ruto will go up to 2032, so that after 2032 now, they are looking at Mudavadi and they are looking at Wetangula. This thing is horrible, Bwana Gathongo.
Yeah, in other countries they have cured that through what you can say, negotiated democracy, like in Nigeria, where they say if the president this particular time comes from the north, the next one will come from the south. Because we cannot turn our eyes that Kenyans first of all feel their communities, tribes, before they even feel being Kenyan. A Kenyan will talk about Kenya after having talked about his community. Very few will talk about Kenya and then talk about their communities. And that is a very huge difference. And they believe that if my man is in power, if a person is in power, our area becomes a little bit better. It may be a false notion, but it is there. And you cannot disabuse that easily from the Kenyans. So in the BBI, there was a bit of that what do we do to ensure that just about anybody can become the president of this republic? Because at this rate, when do we expect the first Turkana president, for instance? Or the first Ogiek president, for instance? Because Obama was almost like an Ogiek in America. He's a son of an immigrant, but he's good. This boy is good. This boy is talking on our behalf. We can give him the highest office of this land. But in Kenya, if I'm born a Turkana and I really want to be president and I have all the attributes of being a president, any chance? Almost zero. So we should come up with the mechanism to ensure that actually our politics is about ideology, competition of ideas, not only about, populace. We've had even people saying, tuzaane kabisa, without even saying, ukizaa bas, I'm going to take care of the child that you are bringing into this world. So democracy should not only be about numbers, it should also be about ideas, great ideas. Like we have a very great country. We are pap in the middle of Africa. we are looked upon by other nations around us. We can actually run away with the idea of Pan-Africanism because it will help us a lot. People perceive Kenyans to be friendly, to be intelligent, to be people who can stay anywhere, and to offer some intellectual discourse in policy decisions and all. So those are some of the things that we would want to hear our political parties talking about, something that will help this country move forward. But when it goes down to tribes and clans and even families to some extent, then we are losing it. Because people are coming together. The world is coming together. The European bloc coming together. America coming together. Africa coming together. We cannot afford to be regressing rather than progressing.
Right, and Gadogo, as you are saying, I go back to the issue of the Mtu syndrome. And also the issue of, when it comes to after elections, Kenyans are of different type.
Yeah.
Before elections, and during elections, we are two different Kenyans.
Yeah.
You're talking good about putting the Kenya first, looking at our issues that are ahead of us. But now, if you look at the issue of the changing the constitution, and as we're speaking right now, the president has ensured he has a very reasonable number in parliament. And he is continuing to woo more members from the opposition towards his side to be able to achieve the 2/3 rule in parliament. There's a clear indication more things to come. Number two, when Kenyans come to elections, looking at the history, they go back to Mtu syndrome. But before we are very okay, we are together talking about no, Kenya is one. Oh. But during elections, now we go back to our cocoons, right? And therefore, I feel, which I think you can be able to correct me, that when it comes to changing the constitution to amend the president limit, the issue of tying of numbers is going to play course. The issue of Mtu syndrome is going to play course. The tying of numbers in parliament, which is very, very key, is going to also play course. How do you feel we are going to come out of this cage? Because it is already in place.
Yeah, that is one of my biggest worry. There's going to be a lot of gerrymandering of constituencies. We've already seen it in counties, whereby a county says, like, was it yesterday, the day before yesterday, suburbs want to have a county of their own and all that. And yes, it's a huge problem because, as I said earlier, we are only 60 years. So we are still forming our union. Nobody chose to be Kenyan. The colonialists just threw a map and said this is Kenya. So it is left to us. In fact, at the Lancaster constitutional meeting to grant us independent, it was either you choose, it was Gloucester House or Lancaster House. We went to the Lancaster House and they gave us a constitution and told us to go sort ourselves. So we are still sorting ourselves. We tried a unitary form of government for before 2007, and then said, let us first of all go back to our counties and see whether we can accept ourselves first so that we can come out as one country. I usually tell people there's nothing like Kalenjins, because we have like Kipsigis as one ethnic group.
Tugens.
We have Tugens, we have Nandis. But Kipsigis is one, Kalenjin is one collective block of now people with some common cultural or historical heritage of cooperation within their setup. There's nothing like the Ruyas, because it's a block. It's just like they are in the Western and they have stayed together for years and intermarried, and then we say they are Ruyas. Actually, when you go there, I don't tell you, Mimi, I cannot even hear what he's speaking, but that is also a block.
You have the Bukusu, you have the Maragoli.
We have Bukusu,
you have
Maragoli.
the Idaho.
The Kikus now are coming with something called Kamwene. I don't know whether you've heard about it. In the Kamwene, they are saying we can have Kikuyus Embus, Meru, and some parts of even...
Is it the same as Gema?
Yeah, Gema plus, because now they are moving to the diaspora, like some parts of Ukambani. And they are saying, look, the Kalenjins have formed a block from just one word, saying Garii means, let me tell you, isn't that the meaning? Or something. And the Ruyas, they are Murembe. Murembe, is the uniting factor. Yes. Murembe, peace. So they are also saying, as Gema, one of the reasons why we are losing out is we are not together. Can we now come together so that these blocks can now negotiate as blocks, whereby we can say, this is the idea from the Western Bloc, this is the idea from Rift Valley, this is the idea around the mountain, and try now, instead of looking at those small entities, blocks are now discussing about the Republic. Whether that works is subject to conjecture. But it is a good thing, because we said at first, 2010, let us part, let us talk, so let us now join together as a country. We are still looking for a formula for a more perfect union, whereby I will feel, although I am Kikuyu,
don't you see it having a lot of chances of still disenfranchising the country and actually bringing a lot of maybe what we can call now, or increasing that particular
animosity?
Animosity,
yeah. But what is the alternative? Because you cannot tell people, if you go to Eldoret and say, you guys, you are not Kalenjin anymore, I want you to be Kipsigis, Nandis, what would happen? Even people will laugh you off. But Kalenjin is a creation of Moist time. It's a very new concept of actually saying these are Kalenjins. Ruyas were created by the colonialists in the 1940s, 1950s. Before that, there was nothing like Ruya. Yeah. So the Kamwenes are coming now. Gema tried to be created after 1963 failed.
Because Banagadogo, and actually that point is very interesting, because one of the things that most Kenyans actually believed would actually cure that which you are calling the Mutuetu syndrome.
Yeah.
Is a bringing up, or is the coming up of devolution?
Yeah, devolution was supposed to do that. I was there. I was there during that time, and it was very emotive, because almost everybody wanted their own counties. But one of the criteria for a county was self-reliance. Is that county viable? Viability of a county. But we just said only 5 are viable. All the rest are basket cases.
What needs to be done to make the others also viable or independent?
Join them.
Join the 5?
Yeah, no, join the counties, the number of counties.
Okay.
Why should you have Kisii and you have Nyamira? Why should you have like Kisumu and you have like Siaya?
So instead of increase,
instead of increase,
they can be
we should be talking about.
Yeah,
we should be about. Actually, the number is usually between 14 and 18. And those are viable units, whereby now you can look, instead of land as just for speculative reason, you're also looking at land as a resource to be used by everybody, as the Constitution says, to be able to create wealth. Whereby you can say, like Nyandarua here, this town today, the number of Nyandarua young men here, far outnumber the number of all the Kikuyus who are here, born and brought up here. Why? Because where the shilling is here. So why have Nyandarua County, where half of the county works in Nakuru County, and they still a Nyandarua? What is it for?
Now, by the way, Nyandarua seems away from the Mount Kenya region than being closer to them.
And they are now in Nakuru. Now all the odd jobs in Nakuru, ask anybody, ask any young person from
Nyandarua.
Yeah. Everything is coming from Friday. Just go here at what do you call it? Dondori.
Yes.
The number of pikipiki is going up. Monday they becoming food stuff. So and then
so Nyandarua should be under Nakuru.
Yeah,
precisely.
Why not join Nyandarua and Nakuru? It's just a proposal, so that you can come up with viable counties, because all our food comes basically from Nyandarua. If Nyandarua was to say we are not supplying you food, we starve here in Nakuru. So why not say there's too much commonality between Nyandarua and Nakuru, and we can actually have one county here. Or if you wanted,
so it doesn't necessarily mean that the more the counties, the more the chances that we'll have more services being decentralized.
To me, since we also have another unit, that is the ward, and we've also said we can actually deal with the wards. Do you know there are only 3 people who can sign money? The MCA, your MP cannot sign any check. So it's usually the MCA, the governor, and the president. Those are the only people mandated to sign money on behalf of government. So we can actually take monies to the ward. So why have these so many small fragments of the country that, 1, they are not viable, 2, they don't make any economic sense, yeah? Because they are going to, 80% of all money that goes to the counties is used for the current expenditure. Only 20% goes to development. So having more counties, you are increasing that. Are you getting?
But Gagogo, I think if we could have managed our counties better,
yeah,
because the main purpose of counties is to devolve functions, yeah, and to bring an equitable distribution of resources.
Yeah,
I think what we have done is that we have mismanaged our counties, and many of our governors don't understand the purpose of the county.
I would also say, like if you have Kisii and Nyamira, aren't you perpetuating that? Because the same people, same language, same culture, same area. Why are you having Kisii and the other county? Really? Why? Give me one very good reason as to why we should have Kisii and the other one is
Nyamira.
And Nyamira. Give me one good reason. It's just like, since the others are asking, we can also ask. Since the others are getting, we can only get. But at what cost? 80% of the money that will go to that county will be used for the current expenditure. You can go to some counties where there is no rain, there is no river, there is no single lake. Yet there is a minister for fishery. What is that person supposed to be doing there? Let's talk about things that actually make sense. And say, like Nakuru and Nyandarua, you get all your food from Nyandarua. You get all your human resource for odd jobs from Nyandarua. Then why are you having Nyandarua and Nakuru? Why not join Nakuru and Nyandarua, becoming one single unit, economic block? Because you'd say now food will become cheaper. Yeah. The cost of running that government is 80%, and it is 1. It is not 160 now because of 80% plus this other 80%. So that money that you would have used to run that other county is used for development. Are you getting the sense? Yeah. So that now these blocks become together. Later when we are together, all of us, we can now start saying the Tugets from Baringo don't feel alienated from joining the Nakuru, because actually the biggest trading block of Baringo is also Nakuru. So you reduce those counties and you make sure they are represented, and you make sure also resources flows down to them.
As we come to the conclusion, Bwana Gazoga, because we are just with like maybe 2 to 3 minutes, I think we can also draw some parallels. How do you compare Kenya with Uganda and maybe Rwanda, where we have the 2 presidents from those 2 countries who have really ruled for quite a long time? And some people are saying the Rwanda economy is far much better than Kenya because of the principles of President Kagame.
Kenya is right years ahead of Rwanda and Uganda democratically. You go to Rwanda, people live in fear. They live in fear. If you wanted to compare Kenya and Rwanda, it's like Kenya in the 80s. You'll be told, you are an island of peace in a sea of turmoil. But actually there was more turmoil within, because even if you went to any hotel, you'd actually first look at a person, not on his face, his shoe. If it's well polished, you minded your business of taking your tea and living quietly because you could be a policeman. So we don't want to live in a police state because that is not development. Do you even enjoy that? Yes. I was a young man during those days with my money. I could not enjoy. Nakuru here used to be closed at 8 p.m. There's nothing to do. 8 p.m. everybody is at home. So that Nakuru becomes or is treated as the most peaceful town. People, is that development really? So we are 8 years ahead when it comes to democracy, probably only after South Africa in Africa. Okay. So although we are not doing, the best, we are not doing as badly. Because, you know, there's also a lot of negativity in Kenya. We like complaining a lot. But when you visit these other countries, you go to Ethiopia and you feel literally you're in a military, you know, zone. You go to Uganda, where during campaigns, already results are known, and even the percentage of you know, there are certain things we are much ahead of this.
So we should guard what?
We should guard and not allow dark forces to grow back the democratic advancement that we've been able to make. Even sometimes at the cost of people who see.
Thank you. Bwana Ben Gadhogo is a political analyst and also a governance expert. We really appreciate and very, very many thanks for your contribution and great insights as far as today's discussion is concerned.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we also want to appreciate your dear viewer for following us on this particular discussion on the proposal on presidential term limit. And of course, the mood of the country is that no, let's take stock of the 5 years, then decide whether to give the government another 5-year term. My name is Mangito Mola on behalf of the entire crew that has made this a success for today. We'll see you again next week at a time like this. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Right, I want to thank you also for finding time to join us in today's mid-morning pack. Once again, my name is Paul Kagi. I'm wishing you a blessed day ahead.